Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And this is a heavily requested video. I've had quite a few people send me links to Jeff Cavalier's deadlift. Uh, they've asked me to look at it. They're like, hey, could you cover this? I'm like, okay, I don't do many of these, but I'll do one on this. Mainly just because I watched the deadlift. I didn't care about the rest of his video. And because this has been a major topic of controversy, and this falls back into my area, strength. Now, for his fans who come in here, this is about being honest and transparent here, guys. And Jeff should probably have done what I've had to do. And when I've been called out on something that I did that was unintelligent and stupid, which his fake weights was, like everyone looking knows he's using fake weights. Every real coach knows, every real lifter knew. Right, this wasn't actually up for debate. That sometimes we have to get up and say, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. It was silly. It was a bad idea. It was stupid, and we have to bite off some humble pie. I've had to do things like that. Okay. And for his fans who also come in and say, well, I think he has a sexually attractive physique and I'm more attracted to his body than to yours. Well, that's largely irrelevant because neither one of us list physique or bodybuilding in our channel titles, our descriptions, anything else. These are supposed to be strength, sports, and athletic channels. That's what I care about. Okay? Largely irrelevant to the topic because he doesn't market himself as a bodybuilding, a competitive bodybuilding or men's physique competition channel. He markets it as athletes. Train like an athlete. Strength coach. Okay, that's what he markets. And that's what we're talking about. We're going to stick to the topic at hand because that's what I also do. So, this is a case of Jeff just being greedy and as far as faking stuff to try to make more money to market himself. The problem is that a lot of his fans, when I look at the video, are like, oh, you showed them you did a heavy deadlift. And guys, that's not a heavy deadlift. And before you chime in and say, well, because a lot of his people, well, maybe he's lost a little strength due to his age. I'm in my 40s and I can out deadlift him by 200 plus pounds. I don't train the heavy deadlift. So before you guys say, well, athletes can't run around deadlifting heavy all the time. How often do I do a heavy deadlift? Once every 3 weeks? New rotation is probably going to be once a month. I'm going to pull heavy for 1 rep once a month. Okay? I build my deadlifts off of speed pulls, which works phenomenally well for field athletes, by the way. Speed pulls, like if you want to be an athletic field athlete who can't be beat up by doing heavy deadlifts, speed pulls with bands and chains are phenomenal. That's 95% of my deadlift training is speed pulls with lightweight. Okay? Like 50% of my max for singles with 25% bands or chains over it. Lots of good mornings, lots of body weight exercises. What do we mean body weight exercises? I do a lot of glute ham raises, a lot of inverted rows. I do really heavy good mornings. And when I say really heavy, I mean probably sets of 20 with your 1 rep max. So that's how I build my deadlift. I don't deadlift heavy very often. So before people say, well, he's training like an athlete, he can't deadlift heavy all the time. No, you just display a deadlift. If you're strong, and you've built all the musculature up through muscle size of the muscles involved in the deadlift, you're going to have a respectable deadlift. And a 425 just isn't that good. And before people say, well, his body weight. I have a 165-pound client who deadlifts over 500 now, who our goal is to get him to 585 this year. Like that's what we're trying to get to, or within the next year. So his 160-something pound body weight shouldn't be an issue. Also, he's mostly lean. Okay, so he should be as strong as people the next weight class up. But let's come over to why it's fake. Anyone who watched the original video, what did he do? He had supposedly 495 on the bar. He walked over and with good form, good technique, pulled a double while leaving reps in the tank. Like you watch this double that he did with no belt. Okay, notice he did not have to do any thoracic rounding to lift it, right? It was fast, it was easy. In other words, he probably could have done 3, 4, 5 reps. Now, that means that his max deadlift should be something up between 530 and 550. Based upon the display that we saw, because he left reps in the tank, he looked like he could have done 1 to 2 more reps, if not 3 more reps. That means his max is anywhere from 530 up to about 550 based upon that display, and it was easy for him. What does he do in the ladder? He comes in and he grabs 420, and the 405 was hard for him, by the way, on the ramp up. He has a belt on. He has arm bend, the thing that he tells people not to do. He comes in and he grinds and he strains and has to use thoracic rounding to lift it. And I'm not against thoracic rounding, but why did he need thoracic rounding to lift 425, but he didn't need it to do rep work with 495? 70 pounds heavier. And with no belt. He had thoracic rounding, and then he had to hitch at the top. Now, powerlifters are laughing because what do we know? A hitch gets you red lighted in competition. In other words, he couldn't lift the weight without hitching. He had to hitch to lock the 425. It was grindy. That was his all-out max. And I don't have a problem with ugly reps on maxes, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes my maxes look ugly. Welcome to the real world. Max lifts tend to get ugly. Your muscle weaknesses come out. Your compensatory strength comes out. Perfectly normal. But the fact is, 425, for his level of experience and being a strength coach, is kind of bad. And again, we need to come back over to the point. The deadlift is just a display of strength. You don't actually have to train heavy deadlifts to have a really heavy deadlift. In other words, let's come back over to me having over a 600-pound deadlift. I don't really deadlift heavy very often. And when I do, it's just for 1 rep. Every 3 to 4 weeks. Okay? And I do variations. I don't even do the standard deadlift until I'm ready to PR on it. I don't even do it until I know I'm strong enough to PR on it. All right? It's not necessary. If you're strong, top to bottom, you will have a good deadlift, even if you don't train heavy deadlifts. And that is a fact. Every strength coach knows this. It's a test of brute strength. It doesn't require any real technique or training for the most part. As long as you're strong, the deadlift will bring out your weak links. And we saw his weak links coming out at 425. You could see his weaknesses coming out. What do you mean his weaknesses? His erectors, his hamstrings. Jeff has weak hamstrings. He has a weak low back. How's that an athlete? What do we know about athletes? Weak hamstrings equals injuries on the playing field. He has weak hamstrings. But back over to the point. It was nowhere near. It was at least 100 pounds less than he has basically pretended to lift. Because again, that easy 495 double beltless should be at over 100 pounds more than what he pulled for a max. All right, guys, that's fakery. That's trickery. It's a lack of integrity. It's lack of honesty. And before people jump up and say, well, Jason, he's a very high integrity guy. Is he? He sells branched chain amino acids. Okay, he's a guy who talks about putting the science back into strength. What if all the meta-analysis on branched chain amino acids shown that as a supplement, BCAAs do not enhance muscle growth? They don't enhance muscle protein synthesis. Even when transfused in an IV, they only do anything when they're part of a larger protein matrix, usually in their native state. That's where all the benefits from BCAAs have been found. This is meta-analysis. So if you follow the science, you know they're a scam. They're one of the biggest scams of the last decade in the supplement world. Yet he sells them. So I don't want to hear his fans come and talk to me about integrity. The scam products alone. All right? And I would ask these guys who are buying his programs talking about getting strong, how many of you are deadlifting over 500 pounds? How many of you are squatting over 400 pounds while still being able to be field athletes? Because if you're going to, those are baseline strength. You don't have to get fat into a high body weight to hit those numbers. Okay, again, come back over to the point. I have guys on my client list with numbers bigger than that who weigh 170 pounds or less. All right? Or less. I even have a guy right now who can pause bench for a full second, a good clean pause bench. Pause bench is 325 while weighing 176. Okay, and we're working up towards a 500 deadlift for him. He can also squat over 400 pounds. Okay, so this is not acceptable, right? Even for his body weight, these are not good numbers, even for his body weight and age. His strength just isn't there, and he faked strength. He faked strength for marketing purposes. It fits right up there with the fake supplements. And had he just owned up to it and said, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. It was silly. I didn't mean to misportray my strength, and just kind of apologize for it, I think most people would respect him more. Not that he cares about anyone's respect. The guy is making millions of dollars with some of this nonsense. He's a millionaire. He's a multimillionaire. Not that he cares about your respect. He just wants your money. Just wants your money. But it was dishonesty, and this actual deadlift, which a lot of his fans took as proof of his validity, is actually the opposite. It is evidence. It is evidence of guilt. And anyone who understands basic strength and biomechanics can look at that and understand that. And it needed to be broke down for people. All right, guys. Well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.